Hi, I'm Alan Dale from Gale Force Winds, and I got to tell you, it's a lot of fun to be here in conversation at Central Minex 2024. A lot of great things happening in the room right now, a lot of business being done, a lot of conversations being had in a very special place in Gander, Newfoundland, and I got to tell you, there's a great story around this place I'm going to get to in a minute, but I want to acknowledge our sponsor, Rally Drilling Services. They had a vision here to get everybody in the conversation, everybody talking. They know that everybody's voice is important and it's going to lift the whole space. Speaking of lifting the whole space, now you were at a place in time that I'd like you to take me back to, and I want to explore your story a little bit. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about that?
Brian Mosher, I've been in Gander itself since 1983, acknowledged my hometown of Corner Brook, which I was until then, other than the sidestep to University in St. John's. Very heavily involved with Rogers Television, but a lot of people would also know me as the high school media teacher here at Gander Collegiate. In 2001, though, my life took on a direction I think that I couldn't even envision myself. I was the on-air face of Rogers Television, basically meaning that I was the only person who went in front of the camera. And when 7,000 extra people come to your town and you realize that the word has to be gotten out, because these things in our pocket now that tell us everything. 2001, surprise, surprise, they didn't exist. The smartphone and whatever else. So people relied on newspaper, radio, and television. As the voice of community television in Gander, that became very pivotally important to me. I guess to the town. And of course, the day before, on September 11th, when all the things unfolded in New York, and you think New York is really far away from you, it in fact isn't. I spent that afternoon into that night turning a school into a hotel, because basically anything with a big floor in the surrounding area was turned into a hotel. After 27 hours of that and welcoming some very distraught passengers who really didn't know where they were and what they were up to, I thought I was going home. And on the morning of September the 12th, 2001, with sleep deprivation into its 27th hour, I went home, and when I got on the foot of my bed about to fall in, my producer from Rogers, Brian Tremblett, would call me and told me I was on the air in an hour to do an update show. So I went up there. Well, 1 hour, one show became 4 days, and one show became 11.
Wow.
And by virtue of that, without realizing it, I have probably the only footage of 9/11 in Gander and the only voices from 9/11, because no other reporters could get in. So right. I'm here.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start. I mean,
yeah.
When the plane, we all know the story of 9/11 and horrific. When the planes started to arrive here, what were you thinking? What was going through your mind when you saw them one after another coming?
Certainly not 5 days. Planes in Gander stop, they take off stuff that's not supposed to be on them, and they put things on that they need on them, then they leave. My quick thing that morning was to get a quick story out on what was happening with the planes before they left. Because guaranteed by supper time that night they were gone. Of course, the airspace would remain closed for 5 days.
Yeah.
The only one who's got a story as interesting as mine, of course, is the counterpart of my Come From Away character, Janice Gowdy. Janice Henstridge, she was then. She was a reporter at the local paper, the Gander Beacon, and she was on her first day on the job. Her first story were on those planes at the airport.
Really?
And someone had to show her where the airport was. She was new, had arrived from Port aux Basques the day before. We would be running into each other wherever for 2 days before we found out each other had names. It was a story that was unfolding under your feet. It's like trying to hula hoop on a waterbed sometimes, because the ground underneath you keeps moving.
Yeah.
But in doing all that, people wanted information, but the information was changing. Yeah. I would go on TV with a game plan, but that game plan was quite often gone out the window by the 10-minute mark of the show. My V-shaped Winstead desk at the cable station was like a Vegas card dealer. There were pieces of paper being slung down the table, and I would be taking ones out of the pile and just throwing them down.
Wow.
So it's It was an amazing story to have been a part of.
I bet. I mean, and just as you say, you're tired and you're trying to you're just running on adrenaline at that point.
And caffeine.
And caffeine.
Caffeine is, and you weren't eating right that week because most of what you ate came out of a cardboard box.
Yeah.
You know, it's it wasn't exactly the best week on your health.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, you were under TV lights, which were tungsten at the time, and they were like drying your face out.
Yeah.
Once you stay awake so long, your eyes go red, and then they start to bruise underneath.
Yeah.
I had 2 black eyes by the end of the week. They were actually black underneath my eyelids and so on.
Tell me about the first time you met a passenger that came off the flights. What was that like? What was the experience like?
I can tell you exactly who it was because I was still at Gander Collegiate. The whole Rogers thing hadn't transpired yet. It was a lady by the name of Miriam Schumann. She was an English second language teacher on her way back to a family function in New York. And she came in through the front door of Gander Collegiate. It was almost midnight. And we'd gone through all the debriefings, and we'd become just what a scary place the world had become that day. On the night of September 11th, and I can still see her, she literally fell into my arms and said, "My apartment is however many blocks from the World Trade Center. Is it okay?"
Yeah.
What do you say to that person?
Yeah.
You know, I hope so. I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's not.
Yeah.
That whole area is like disintegrated. It's gone. I've gone back there many times since. I mean, that level of devastation when both towers came down, it wiped out, blocks of the town, But, and the look of just sheer fright on her eyes, Second guy was a guy in a business suit, one of these New York business types with a thick New York accent. And he came over, he was standing by the payphone. Remember payphones? The payphone in the lobby of Gander Collegiate. And he said, he introduced himself. His first name was Jim. And he said, "What's the score?" I said, "What do you know?" He said, "Apparently some wingnut in the plane hit the Trade Center." I say, "That's true. There was a plane hit the Trade Center." He said, "North or South Tower?" So, maybe a couple of planes. And he said, "Much damage?" 12 hours ago, they fell.
Wow.
And I said, "Just lean on the wall for a second. I'm just going to lay this on you. World Trade Centers are gone, both North and South Tower. There's a hole in the Pentagon. There's a crater in a field in Pennsylvania." And I said, "I'll let you process that when you've got your head around it." And he said a couple of choice words and said, "No, the World Trade Center." I said, "Gone. They are gone."
Wow.
So you're unloading that, and I mean the whole night. Then are these people going to bed? We had the TVs on because part of my media program at Gander Collegiate, I had closed circuit TVs on every corner. Rogers Television had a full cable feed coming in. I had the news feeds on. Well, you know what they were watching that? North Tower, South Tower, North Tower, South Tower, Pentagon, Pennsylvania, someone talking about it. And there were people literally watching their homeland being attacked.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to leave it. There were sobs, there were tears, there were people hugging each other. It was really, really weird. So my mind was drained when I got home the next morning, thinking I was going to bed.
Right.
I wasn't going to bed. I was going to the cable station. Other than going back to school at night to do night shifts, I would be back 3 shows a day for the next 4 days.
Oh my. Wow.
In a fluid, ever-changing situation that was going underneath you while you were talking about it. Because at 1 minute the planes were leaving, then they weren't leaving, then some were leaving but others were staying, then some were staying and some were going back to their points of origin while others were going. And the emotions were flowing.
Right.
There were people that had to get where they were going for very important reasons.
Yeah.
Family deaths, family occasions. One lady in particular I talked to, she just adopted a daughter in Asia and she was coming home. I've got to get home. Didn't get home, not for 5 days, and it's
Wow.
But the crazy thing about it all, and I literally do talks everywhere on this. I'm heading actually to New Jersey now in a couple of weeks. We were represented here that week by 95 countries. Not all those countries believe the same things, and not a lot of them get along together. But we were asked in a town hall, obviously these town hall talks and so on for bus tours and that sort of thing, what our level of crime was like. And up to that point I hadn't thought of it, but Ozzie Fudge, town policeman, was there with me, and we both looked at each other. because for those 5 days, our level of crime and conflict and whatever else in this town was zero.
Wow.
I watched people from opposing countries comfort each other, eating together, sharing a meal, looking out to each other, because for those 5 days we were all people. Now there were some tense moments, like when someone was going home, then you tell them that they're not. Okay, you're not exactly the happiest person in the world, but there was no conflict. And we can all get together for 5 days and get along.
Yeah.
There's a lesson for the world.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah,
right?
it
absolutely.
really is. Yeah.
Tell me about this. When they came to you and told you that they were fashioning a character after you for a musical, not understanding how big this thing would become, well, what was your initial thoughts on that?
Is this ever going to happen to me? And it was actually in this building that I would meet David Hine and Irene Sankoff, just right there in the other corner of the building. I would meet him on the 10th anniversary of 9/11 here at this big community function. And I'll be honest with you, I thought there were two stranded passengers back, and I did an interview with him. When I put the camera down, he said, "Are you Brian, the TV reporter from Rogers?" I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "You're on our list to talk to." Well, where's this ever going to go? You're going to write a play about soup and sandwiches and blankets, and yeah, okay, you can never fathom, one, that the show being written has come from away, and two, that it's going to get that big. But like with this show, I've been literally around the world. I've been to Australia twice. I've been to England twice. I've been all across the States, all across Canada, and they can't get enough of the Gander story during 9/11. They want it. We were in Australia, myself and Honest Fudge, 2 summers ago. We did 2 full weeks, 4 stops, Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, and the Gold Coast. And we were working 12 and 14-hour days so that everybody who wanted to hear the story could, And they can't get enough of it.
And I think it's important now, right now, that the story gets out even more, right?
It's a story everybody needs to hear.
Yeah.
To know that someone, no matter how dark the world gets, has your back.
Yeah.
They have your back. When the world turns dark, there's still somebody who'll put themselves second to give you that hug, make sure you're looked after. I mean, I kid you not, that week the average weight gain was about 5 pounds. I had one guy come to me when they were leaving and said, "How can I go home and say I was a refugee when I'm 5 pounds heavier with a suntan?"
Right.
He said, "It's going to be good to get home, but like this has been pretty amazing." And I'll tell you another thing, of a pilot with a European carrier that flew back wearing Walmart sweatpants because he couldn't get his flight pants on that fit perfectly on Tuesday. By Saturday, they wouldn't do up. The same guy that faxed me 2 weeks later from Bombay International Airport asking for the recipe, and I quote, "for the white fish and the cheesy, creamy stuff that I eat so much of." Yeah, the Cotta recipe is somewhere in Europe right now, and from what I know, he's actually made it.
You're a reporter. You met a lot of people.
Yep.
You've seen a lot of things in life. Tell me this, and maybe an unfair question because you come from generally this part of the world. What is special about this place? What is it that made all this come together?
It's the Newfoundland way, and we were the first couple of years saying to people, I think this would have happened anywhere this would have happened, and we got told flatly no. We've talked to people for some towns. They said we may not have even have welcomed you off the planes, let alone done what you guys did. Is the fact that the Newfoundland spirit is a caring one. And it was bred into me as a child. Look to your left and right, not just at yourself. If your neighbor needs something, then make sure it's looked after. Don't just mow your lawn, mow your neighbor's lawn, which I've done for years.
Yeah.
Snowblower, which I keep in my neighbor's garage and do my neighbor's driveway and mine at the same time. That, if you've got a bit of food in your house, my father goes back. Dad was born in 1931. Like Dad said, you talk about starved to death. He said, no, when I was a boy, I watched people starve to death.
Yeah.
So he said, don't ever assume everybody has got everything, by the hand and everything is cool. And it's, there's something to be said about looking after each other.
Yeah.
Now, to the level where we did in 2001, that's showing the world how it should be done. And we were inventing the wheel as it was spinning.
Yeah.
But I think we did a half decent job at it.
That's it's almost like a harmonious moment where
It is.
You know what I mean?
Very, very
When
harmonious.
the orchestra comes together. And,
Yep.
Yeah.
Someone asked me, and again, I get asked all these questions. I said the biggest thing we had going for us is that everybody pulled in the one direction.
Yeah.
That full week, all the powers that be that could have come to the assistance all pulled in the one direction. From the people in their homes, people in the surrounding areas, the people who could provide, to the policymakers, to the people at the airport, to the Red Cross, to Transport Canada people, we all pulled in the same direction. And in the end of it, we were all good and tired, but they had been looked after.
What a wonderful conversation. I want to thank you very much for allowing us into that journey with you. You look well rested now. I'm sure you weren't then. Thanks very much. And look, on behalf of our good friends at Raleigh,
Thank
take
you, buddy.
ball cap, and we really appreciate you being on the show.
Anytime, man. Take care.